All right, so just like we did it for the first topic, this one we'll quickly go through some questions. Then later on, I'll send you the link. Then you try the multiple choice questions. All right, so let's look at the first one. So I'll read the questions. Then first you try and answer them. Then we'll look at the solutions like that. Okay. All right. So for the first one, we have to name the 4 broad categories of goods and services that we use in economics, and then we have to provide an example of each. So what are these 4 categories of goods and services?
Okay, we have capital goods.
Okay.
We have the capital goods include a police service. It also includes judicial services.
Okay, wait. Let's take our time. The first category you said was what? Capital goods.
Sorry, the first category is capital goods, and that one has to do with semi-finished goods.
Okay. So
and then it also has
an example. So the capital goods are the goods that we use to further produce other goods and services. Okay.
other goods, yes.
Yes.
So
semi-finished goods are part of that.
yes. And we have government goods that are purchased by the government.
Okay.
And that one, an example includes police service and judicial services.
Okay. Good.
Okay. And then we have export goods that are produced and that are produced and export to other countries.
Okay.
And then we have the 4th one is what I've forgotten.
The
Popular one.
consumption goods.
Consumption goods, yes. So I don't know, consumption goods. Yes, those are purchased by individuals for personal consumption.
Okay. So that one we can give anything that we directly use. Okay, anything that we directly use, we call it a consumption good. All right. So yes, those are the. I hope you are there.
Yeah, I'm alive.
Okay. All right. So those are the 4 categories: consumption goods and services. So a shirt, a haircut, any good or service that individuals directly consume. Those are the consumption goods and services. Then for the capital goods, oil rig, trucks, computers, buildings, all those are part of capital goods. So we are using them to produce other goods and services. Then the government goods and services, as we said, those are the ones bought by the government. So highway, police protection, judicial service, education, and all that. And then the export goods and services are the ones that we produce domestically, but then sell it to the outside. So that one we have a wide range of the goods and services. All right, so that is it. Now we have to name the 4 factors of production and the incomes they earn. The 4 factors of production and the incomes they earn.
Okay, we have land, which is rent.
Okay.
We have labor, which is wages.
Okay.
We have capital, which is interest, and we have entrepreneur, profit or loss.
Oh, very good, very good. So yes, we have land, rent, labor, wages, capital, interest, and then entrepreneurship. You either get profit or you incur loss. Very good. All right, let's move on. We have to distinguish between the functional distribution of income and the personal distribution of income. So first, what is the functional distribution of income?
It's the distribution of income among the factors of production.
Okay. And then
the personal distribution is the distribution of income among households or individuals.
Very good, very good. So the functional one is between the factors of production, and then the personal one is between the individuals or the households. Okay. All right. Now, if you remember the thing that we're doing, it was much centered on the United States. Okay, so we just frankly. All right, so the lesson we took, I think it was more centered on the United States. So if you remember, the factors of production, they give us some data for some particular years. All right, so if you remember the functional distribution of the incomes in the United States per the data that we looked at, which factor of production and the largest?
I think labor wages.
Labor,
Yeah,
yes,
wages.
labor. I think it was having about 65% or something. Yes, I think it was labor.
Yeah.
Labor, and it earned about 65%. Yes, that was for 2000. All right. We have to describe what, how, and for whom goods and services are produced in developing countries. So a country like Ghana, what do we actually produce here? And then for how do we produce them? And then for whom do we produce these goods and services? Let's look at it. Solution that they gave. Now here basically we are much into agriculture. The majority of our production is centered on agriculture. Okay. When it comes to the manufacturing, we don't normally do those ones. That's why we import a lot. As for the services, though they are very vital, the quantum of services that we produce in developing countries like Ghana takes a very small percentage of our total GDP. Okay, it's very small. So basically, our production is centered on agriculture. See, we like food. Everything is food. I'm sure that's one of the reasons why we are not actually food. So we are too food centered. Instead of thinking of producing capital goods, we are always producing consumer goods. So yes, this is for the what, and then for the how. Most of our production are labor intensive. We hardly use the modern capital intensive technologies. Even for farming, people are still using cutlasses and hoes. Whilst the advanced countries, they are using tractors and those stuff. Yeah, we are still using those stuff. Okay. And then for the whom. Now, here people that actually find jobs, better jobs, get increasing incomes. They are able to at least have some high levels of standard of living. But then most of the people are unable to secure those kinds of jobs, especially when you go to the rural part of the country, people are still poor. And it's almost like no one cares about them. So they just have to enter into the agriculture. That is why our world is mainly agriculture. What do we produce? Agricultural stuff. Because we don't have the factories. We don't have the industries to work in. Now, you see people with university degrees doing things that we didn't even need university degrees to do. We could have engaged in those jobs even after high school, but then we have to go to school and come back, and there's almost nothing for us to do here. So that is the story of Africa. Okay. All right, now I hope you remember the model we looked at, the circular flow model. Okay. Now, if you take some of the components there, consumption expenditure, purchases of new national defense equipment, and payment for labor services. Where do they actually appear? Where do they move from? And where do they go to? And then through which market? I mean, does each of these ones actually go through? So if you take something like consumption expenditure, who incurs consumption expenditure? Who receives it? Purchasing of new national defense equipment. Which unit will do that? Where would that payment go to? And then payment for labor services. Who gives the labor services? Who buys them? And which market does that actually happen? So if you take the first one, consumption expenditure, that one is done by the households. Okay, it's done by the households and then it moves to the firms. When do we incur consumption expenditure? When we buy goods and services. So the households will buy goods and services from the firm. They have to pay expenditure, and this is done through the goods market. Okay, this is done through the goods market, and then the purchases of national defense equipment. These ones are purchased by the government, and it goes to the firms. Okay, so it moves from the government to the firms, and then this is done in the goods market. So the government will go to the goods market, buy goods and services produced by the firms. And then the last one is the payment of factor services. That one is done by the firms to the households. So remember, the firms will have to go to the factor market, buy the 4 factors of production there, and then they pay the households factor incomes. Okay, factor income. So the factor incomes here will be the payment. So it moves from the firms to the households through the factor market. Through the factor market. So I hope there's no question.
No, I'm okay.
And remember, we said some of the movements are monetary or money, and others are real. I hope you remember that.
Yeah, I do.
Yes, some are monetary terms, others are real. I hope you remember some of the real. For the real, the factors of production moving from the households to the firms, that is a real movement. Then payments, the factor payments that the households receive from the firms, those ones too. Let's look at them. Now, the first real one is the firms going to the factor market to go and do what? To go and buy the factor services. Okay. So here the factors of production are real. Okay, they are real, and this happens in the factor market. So the monies that the firms will have to pay the households, that one will go under the money. Okay, and then when you go to the goods market, to the goods and services that the firms are selling to the households and to the government, those are real movements. Okay, but then the expenditure that the households and the government will incur, those are monetary terms. Okay, so you go to the factor market, the real movement there will be the factors of production. Okay, and then the money there is going to be the factor incomes that the firms will have to pay the households. And then when you go to the goods market, the goods and services that the firms are selling to the individuals and then the government be the real aspect. And then the expenditure that the households and then the government incurs, okay, incurs on the goods and services will be under the money. And if you remember, with the introduction of the government, we have taxes and transfers. Okay, taxes and transfers. The households and then the firms pay taxes, and then the government also gives transfers to the households and then the firms. So all those ones are in monetary terms. Okay? All those ones are in monetary terms. All right. Okay, so today is quite short. It's quite short. I took some of the things out. Some are not very important. They are too centered on the I think the US.
The US system. Okay.
So we'll use these ones. All right, so you can check the link below. Follow the link. Go and take the quiz as we prepare for our next lesson. All the best. Don't forget to subscribe and share.